Okay, welcome to part 2 of our human digestion videos. This is going to cover the anatomy of the human digestive system. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. There's a lot of vocabulary in here, so please feel free to pause and rewind as often as necessary so you can see the terms that are needed here. We're going to start right off at the opening to the digestive system where mechanical digestion and chemical digestion begin, and that's the mouth. All right, the chewing action of the teeth mashes up and mixes the food with saliva. And this is going to increase the surface area so that enzymes and acids can come in contact with more of the food. You have 6 salivary glands. They come in 3 sets or 3 pairs. There's one directly underneath your tongue, which is known as the sublingual. There is another pair below the tongue towards the back of your mouth, and you have 2 more that are up above your mouth towards the back. They all produce the enzyme salivary amylase. Salivary amylase's job is to break down carbohydrates or starches. When you chew up your food, you have to swallow it down, and that's a reflex that you can't control. Once you use your tongue to push food back towards the back of your throat, it's going to automatically start this swallow reflex, and you can see that swallow reflex if you go to your note sheet. You can click on this video and you can watch a really interesting X-ray video of how swallowing actually works. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue that is responsible for covering your windpipe. When you swallow, the lump of food you swallow is called a bolus. When you swallow that bolus down, it pushes down on the epiglottis, which as it gets pushed down, it covers up the opening to your lungs, which is the trachea. If you accidentally inhale as you're swallowing something, which most of us have at some point done, you accidentally inhale food, either solids or liquids, into the trachea, and a second reflex immediately occurs to eject that material out of your lungs. Your food is supposed to travel down a muscular tube known as the esophagus. Now, there is a wave of muscular contraction that you can see in this little animated GIF here that is peristalsis. Peristalsis includes a wave-like contraction that will push food from the upper part of your digestive tract all the way down through all the different parts. So this is a series of muscular wave-like contractions that will keep food moving in the right direction, unless, of course, you get ill and you do reverse peristalsis, which is vomiting. At different locations around your digestive tract, you have stop gaps. These are sphincters that are muscular rings that keep material in a location or prevent it from going backwards. A sphincter is just a ring of muscle that acts as a valve to prevent stuff from going the wrong direction. There are several different medical conditions that can result from the failure of these sphincters. One that you may have heard about before is heartburn, or if it's chronic, it's called GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. There is a sphincter right at the bottom of the esophagus that's called the cardiac sphincter, or in this case, on this image, it's called the lower esophageal sphincter. They're the same thing. All right. The churning action of the stomach can lead to pressure that can push food and acid material up back through the sphincter. Right? This leads to an acid burning sensation in your chest. It can sometimes be so bad that that reflux will go all the way up, and you can actually taste it. It's not a pleasant experience to have chronic heartburn, and a lot of little kids tend to have this because their bodies haven't fully developed yet. So let me move that out of the way, and we can talk about the stomach. Since the food just reached the stomach is responsible for churning, and that churning mixes the mushy food material into a paste called chyme. There is going to be mechanical and chemical digestion occurring in the stomach because the stomach produces gastric juice that is secreted into the stomach. It has a group of enzymes that are known as pepsin, and it also produces hydrochloric acid, which makes the pH of the stomach very acidic, somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 on the pH scale, which is pretty significantly acidic. And we'll find that it doesn't stay that way for long. But that mashed up mush of food called chyme is now going to be a thin, soupy liquid. And it's going to get churned around in there, and it's going to pass through another sphincter to get to the small intestine. But there's another disorder that we can identify here known as ulcers. Ulcers occur when the mucus layer that your stomach is protected by, so the lining of the stomach makes this mucus lining or layer that protects it from the acids and enzymes. But there are different reasons why this mucus layer can break down. It can include a bacterial infection by a genus species here. Hey, just in case you noticed, this is Helicobacter pylori. And H. pylori can cause an infection in your stomach that reduces the mucus production, and the acids and enzymes start to irritate the lining of your stomach, and you get sores there. They can give you an antibiotic to kill these bacteria, and the sores will heal. But there are instances where stress and food choices can lead to irritation in the mucosal lining of the stomach as well. So once food moves from the stomach into the small intestine, this is where a lot of the magic is going to happen, because the small intestine is responsible for the majority of the digestion of the food nutrients into their basic building blocks, and it's also going to be responsible for the majority of the absorption of nutrients. It's divided into three sections known as the duodenum or duodenum, depending on who you talk to, the jejunum, and the ileum. All right, they occur in that order, and each one of them has some unique characteristics that occur there. The duodenum or duodenum is the first section, and that's where most of the digestion occurs, because directly into the duodenum are secreted the pancreatic juices and bile from the liver. So there are two accessory organs that are directly connected to this tube, and they dump enzymes and digestive materials right into the tube. Right? And because of that, this is where lots of different digestion activities occur. The jejunum comes second, and this is where a majority of the absorption occurs. The surface of the jejunum has a really high surface area. You can, it's got folds and crevices all over it, and those folds and crevices have little finger-like projections known as villi. These villi have a tremendous amount of surface area associated with them, so you've got a lot of absorption occurring. So these little folds have all these little folds in them. And within each one of these villi, if you look at it closely, it kind of looks like a carpet, all right? It's got all these little tiny fingers in it, and there's a blood supply that goes into each and every one of them. And right through the middle is this little green tube called a lacteal. Now, lacteals are important for the absorption of fats, but the rest of the nutrients are going to be absorbed right into the blood supply. And those are going to travel to the liver for processing, and then they're going to be shipped around your body. So you have the villi, which have the blood vessels within them to absorb sugars, amino acids, and fats, and the lacteals are specifically designed to absorb those fats. And then all that leftover material that hasn't been absorbed passes into the ileum, and the last bits of nutrients can be absorbed there, and then there's also going to be reabsorption of any bile salts that are left over, and some B vitamins are going to be picked up. All right, so that brings us to the large intestine. Once material moves from the small intestine into the large intestine, there's several different things that occur here, but there is the primary function of the large intestine is for absorption of water. All right? If you don't absorb water, you end up with some chronic problems like diarrhea, shown down here below. All right? If you don't reabsorb the water, you end up with diarrhea. If you absorb too much of the water, you end up with a condition called constipation. All right? The colon, or large intestine, they're the same thing, is divided into separate parts too. There's an ascending colon starting here on the right-hand side of this person's body. All right, it's moving, material is moving up in a clockwise rotation. It moves up the ascending colon. It takes a turn over here, moving towards your left side. That's the transverse colon. Then there is the descending colon that goes down the left side, and it takes a little curve. There's this little S shape here. That's the sigmoid colon. Throughout that process, moisture and some vitamins are going to be absorbed, and by the time the material gets down to the sigmoid colon, it's going to be stored in the rectum, where it will wait for elimination. There is a pair of sphincters inside of the anus that will help to hold the material back until it's an appropriate time to eliminate. There is a condition that is important to know about, and that's appendicitis. Appendicitis is a infection that occurs in the appendix, and the appendix is right at the start of the large intestine. It's this little flap or tail that resides here. And the appendix is actually a storehouse for good bacteria. When you get a digestive infection, the good bacteria are housed in there and help to repopulate your digestive tract so you can recover. But if it gets infected, it can rupture and cause a whole series of serious problems. We call that appendicitis, and often the solution is to remove the pancreas. Excuse me, the appendix. I'm looking at the next term here, which is these are the accessory organs. You need to know the roles of the different accessory organs included in the digestive system. This is going to be the pancreas, the liver, all right? And you've got to know the enzymes that are included in the pancreatic juice. That includes amylase, protease, lipase, and bicarbonate. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, and I was remiss in mentioning it, The pancreas produces this bicarbonate that neutralizes all of the acids that are produced by the stomach. And so material in the small intestine actually has a pH that is higher than 7. It brings the pH up to around 8 or 9 in the small intestine. So it's no longer acidic, it's basic. So you have the pancreas, which is this orangish yellow structure shown here. You have the gallbladder, which is a storage space for bile produced by the liver. So the liver is the accessory organ that produces bile. That bile is stored in the little green pouch. It's actually located underneath the liver, and so it will be stored there, and that bile goes through a little tube into the small intestines. And the gallbladder can develop a condition called gallstones, which is hypersecretion of concentrated bile, and you end up with these cholesterol blobs in here. They look kind of like stones. They are very painful. They can get pretty large. And I also have an image that shows the cirrhosis of the liver, which can result from certain medications being used or alcohol abuse. Chronic medication use can lead to problems with the liver. And I'm going to real quickly take one little sidebar here and go over here to show you in my model here what the orientation of some of these different organs will be. I'm going to remove the lungs because they are kind of in my way here. Right? This large brown organ is the liver. It has several lobes. All right, there's a left and a right lobe, and then right underneath it, as I pull this out, as I show you here, here's where that gall bladder is. It's just a pouch that holds the bile produced by the liver. That all gets secreted into the small intestine. But before I can show you the remainder of the small intestine here and what's underneath it, I need to point out the stomach here. All right, the stomach leads directly into, and you can see the start of it back here. All right, that's the start of the small intestine. All right, so food and chyme will flow right into this tube, and it'll lead through all these tan tubes here. And those are divided into the 3 sections, the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. You can just barely see it here, but you can see the pancreas here, right? And that white line through there is the duct that the pancreatic juice flows through as it dumps right into the small intestine. Oh, I'm sorry, I just lost my picture. Here we go. Sorry, I'm back. All right, now all that material flows through the small intestine. You may be wondering what this yellow material is. This is a layer of fat that protects the abdominal wall. This is called the omentum. Right? It is just a layer of fatty material. It actually has a couple hormone functions, but I will remove those so we can see the internal structures here, because all that material is going to move down, and I actually don't think they show you, I don't think they give you now your kidney definitely doesn't belong down there. There we go. So here is the sigmoid colon and the rectum found here towards the back. Right? And you may notice that the kidneys are located towards the back also. But all right, so that leads out, and remember that the urinary bladder, which is shown here, is not part of the digestive system. It's part of the excretory system, and we'll cover that in greater detail later. Okay, thanks very much, and I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, come and see us.